Alhamdulillah. Okay. Termasuk we continue with the ancestors of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, right? And we have reached right. So we have reached the ancestor Qusay, right? Qusay, if I'm not wrong. And I'm not sure if we finished Qusay or not. We finished Qusay or we've reached Qusay. Okay, today we're at Manaf. Okay, but just some things about Qusay. So so basically the intention, right, behind this going through of the the ajdad, right, the ancestors of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, is that it is part of the entire proof of prophethood, right, of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that when we say that he is from noble lineage, right? So now we're looking, in detail into his noble lineage to see really, the nobles in his lineage, mashallah. And that is, that was part of the proof of prophethood, as we know that Hercules, when the letter of Rasulullah SAW reached Hercules all the way in Sham, right? He was still in the Roman kingdom of Sham, right? And the letter Heracles had summoned, right? Anyone, he asked, is there anyone in our land right now who is from Mecca? And at that point in time, Abu Sufyan was there, and Abu Sufyan at that point in time was not a Muslim, and so Abu Sufyan was summoned, right, to speak to Heracles with a translator there, and with Abu Sufyan. And so one of the questions that Heracles asked Abu Sufyan is, what is his lineage? Right, and Abu Sufyan, respond. The entire time Abu Sufyan responding, he was responding truthfully, right? Because there were other Arabs there, right? And he didn't want to, disgrace himself by lying about the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, right? Because to them it is a disgrace if a person lies. It is beneath them, right, to actually lie. It was a terrible thing to lie, right? So Abu Sufyan actually, he answered everything truthfully, right, with the questions of Hercules. One of the questions of Hercules, right, was, what is his lineage like? Right, what is his lineage like? And Abu Sufyan said he has the most noble lineage, amongst us Quraysh, right? So, the Quraysh themselves have a very high lineage, and Rasulullah SAW had the highest lineage, right, amongst the Quraysh. And as we mentioned, that the greatness of the lineage of the Prophet ﷺ is because of the Prophet, right, ﷺ. Right, so him existing in the lineage made the lineage high and noble, mashallah. And we spoke about it some time ago, right, about this. So I want to mention a story about Qusay. So there was, so basically, he, and Qusay, his father, right, so he is a Qusay bin Kilab, right? So Qusay, right, bin Kilab, right? So from the word right? So the thing about it is that his father, right, who is Kilab, right, or Hakim, right? His father had gone out of Mecca, right, and had married a woman who is his mother, outside of Mecca, and there's a story, behind his upbringing, right? So whereby he was, whereby when his father married a woman that was outside of Mecca, we know that all of the ancestors of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, none of them came together without marriage, right? So Rasulullah is a product of marriages. They're all sah marriages, all the way back to Nabi Adam alayhi salam. And alhamdulillah, marriage is an institution that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has placed between human beings, right? And that when, in our zaman, and people have stopped marrying, and of course, you in the West world, right? But whatever begins in the West, as is said, whatever we see, Western world is basically you see the worst of it. It will start there, right? Whatever you see there, it will find its way to the rest of the world, right? So if they have right now, if it's a norm amongst them, right, to have just living together without getting married and having children and so on, and it's normal, right? Now in the West, that they've rejected the entire institution of marriage, right? It is a sign of the end of times, and it's something that will spread worldwide, right? It will spread worldwide in a Dajjalic world, right? So la hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. Alhamdulillah, as Muslims we hold strongly, right, to marriage, right? So, and it is the way of our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Right. So Qusay, right, it was the son, right, or the offspring, right, from this marriage, right, of his father who was killed, right, to a woman, right, who was outside of Mecca, right. So and it was said that his name is Qusay, right, from the word Aqsa, right? Aqsa meaning to be far. Masjid al-Aqsa, right? Masjid al-Aqsa means the mosque that is far, or the furthest mosque, right? So he was called Qusay because he was far, right, from Mecca, because his mother brought him up where he was in his village, right? So his father had married outside Mecca, right? And his mother bore him. Gave birth to him. His mother, her name is Fatima, and Fatima was a very common name, right? So amongst the ancestors of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and amongst the people, women who were around him, there were a lot of women who were named Fatima, right? Was she a very common name in the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and now it's also a common name in our time, right? Because of Sayyidah Fatima Zahra. So so her um so his mother, right? She is not from uh so his mother, she's not from inside of Mecca, but she was from outside of Mecca, right? And it was said that she actually was from the Quraysh, the mother was from the Quraysh, but she migrated, right? She left Mecca, right? So it was said that when the father of Qusay married her, right, she got pregnant, she gave birth to Qusay, and she could see the greatness and the the specialty of Qusay, because he carried the light of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But after she gave birth, the Kilab died, right? He passed away, right? And so she wanted to protect her son, right? And so she left Mecca, right, to become someone unknown, right? She strove to be unknown, so people couldn't find her and couldn't find her son. So she left Mecca and she went to a tribe, right, called Qudaa, right, and she married a man from that tribe, right? She married a man from a tribe. So this man, right, is not the father of Qusay, right? So she married a man, right, from the tribe who's not the father of Qusay, right? So Nam, right? So she lived in this tribe that was far off, right, from Mecca. So the story goes that when Qusay, grew up, right, there was a um like there was some form of disagreement, or clash, you see, right, between him and the family of his stepfather. Okay, right. So, and he was not told, right, that he was actually from the Qusay, right, from the beginning. He was not told, right. So all he knew was that he, as a young boy, he went with his mother to another tribe outside of Mecca, and she married a man from that tribe, right? So he just didn't know that he was not from the tribe, so it was actually a Qurayshi, right? So there was actually a clash, right, between him and his and the people of the family of his stepfather, right? His mother's spouse, right? And so they began to blame him, right? They began to call him names, and one of the names they were calling him, because in this clash, right, was foreigner. They were calling him foreigner, foreigner. You're not from us. You're not from us. You know, and some of them were saying to him, why don't you go back to where you came from? Go back to where you came from. So, go back to your own people. Like, don't be amongst us. Go back to your own people. And there are people who are like that. When they have a clash, right? So, and they will say, no, you're not from amongst us, right? Go back to your land, go back to your own people. You're not from amongst us, right? So he went to his mother and he complained to her, and he was wondering. He was still a young boy, and he was wondering like, why are they saying this to me, right? Am I not from here? They called me foreigner. They told me to go back. They say to me, I'm not from amongst them, right? So he complained to his mother, and she said to him, your town or your place of origin is better than theirs, right? It means biladuka khayrun min biladihim. Your place of origin is better than theirs. وَقَوْمُكَ خَيْرٌ مِنْهُمْ, right? And your people are better than these people, right? And then he said that, and she said, وَأَنْتَ أَكْرَمُ مِنْهُمْ أَبًا, right? And you are more noble than these people here with regards to ancestry, right? And then she told him, Anta ibnu Kilab bin Murrah, right? You are the son of Kilab, right? Bin Murrah, and waqawmuka, and your people be Mecca, right? They are in Mecca, in the Bayt al-Haram, right? They are by the Kaaba, right? So when he found out that he's actually from the Haram, he's from the people of Mecca, from the Haram, right? Uh, uh, right. And then she explained to him, and she said to him that the Arabs, they were going after you, right? She was saying that there are people who are going after you, which is why I fled with you, I ran away with you, and that is because, as we know, they are the enemies, right? The enemies of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam from even before Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, right? There's a story of Tubba, and it's one of the Islam books for kids. Story of Tubba. His story is also found in Surah Dukhan, I think, right? And the story of Tubba, of a person who had come to Medina, and the people there in the Zaman of Tubba, right? They were already waiting for the coming of the last prophet, right? For hundreds of years, they were already waiting in Medina for the last prophet. So this time around, when she was in Mecca, and she said that there was a like a fortune teller, right, who saw you when you were, when you were young. She said there was a fortune teller who saw you when you were young, right? And the fortune teller, the kahin, right, the kahin. So basically, this kahin, that's been who are the kahin, right? The kahin, they do work closely with the jinn, and the kahin, in the time of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, they were very much well known, and people used to go to them, right? They work with the jinn, but you would say they are fortune tellers, right? So the jinn, right, would actually go and the jinn will go and try and get information from the heavens. And the thing about the jinn is that not all of the jinn are able to go high up, to try and get their information, right, from the heavens. So basically, how it works is that you want to see the entire mechanics behind it, right? The angels, right? They hear of information from the Lawh al-Mahfuz, right, from the preserved tablet, of decree, right, and they speak about it among themselves, right, in paradise. The jinn, right, the shayateen, right, they try to get as close as they can. So some of them are able to go nearer, they're able to fly higher, you say, right, and some of them are unable. So what happens is that, those who are able to go nearer, they hear one thing from the malaika, from the angels, right? They hear one thing from the angels, and then they kind of make it into a big story. Then they spread jinn. Then the other jinn, right? They hear what they hear, and they make it into a bigger story, right? We see a lot of lies, a lot of lies in there. Then they spread to other jinn, and so on and so forth, until they reach this news reaches a jinn on the earth, because there are jinn on this earth that don't fly. That's something I just learned. And they don't actually fly. They just stuck on this earth. So these are the ones that will go to these human beings who work with them, and then they um, right, and then they tell them, right, about what they hear and stuff like that. Right. So these are the kahin, right? The fortune tellers. They get their news from this jinn. So sometimes you get news that's correct, and sometimes they get completely nonsense, in their news. Allahu alam. So anyway, kahin. So the reason why she fled, right, away from the Arabs, because she was saying that the arrows were going after you, because it was said by one of the kahin, one of the soothsayers, or one of the fortune tellers, that you that what will follow you will be a great matter, right? Will be a great matter, right? And so they were trying to get him. They were trying to pry, her son from her hands. This happened actually later on with Abdul Muttalib, right? His same thing. His mother, he was orphaned, right? Sayyidina Abdul Muttalib was orphaned from Sayyidina Hashim passed away. Then his mother kept a secret, right, in Yathrib for the longest time. I mean, for as long as she could. So when it came to light that there's actually a son of Hashim in Yathrib, the uncle came over to try and to take it away, to take Abdul Muttalib away, right, from the mother. This is why they ended up, for this woman specifically, who is a great grandmother of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. She fled, right? She fled and she ran away, right? So when she told him, what happened, and now he's older, right? Told him what happened, so he went, right, back to Mecca, with the people who are going for the pilgrimage, with the Hajjaj, right? So he went, with those who are going for the pilgrimage. He followed them back to Mecca, right? And then he came into Mecca, and they could recognize him, right? They could recognize his face. And this was something that was, this was something that was, uh, it was something that was so well known, the light of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that was so well known, right? That someone, they could just see someone's face, and they know this person is carrying the light of the last prophet. They could tell it. Right? They could tell. The people of Makkah, it has become so prominent in the society. They could look at the face of one individual and they know it. They know that he's carrying the light of the last prophet. Sallallahu alaihi wasallam. To that extent, mashallah. The other day I was in my Sirah class, and we were talking about Abu Lahab. This class that I go for, and Durus fi Secretary Nabawiyah. It's a Syrian book, mashallah, and the teacher is a Syrian teacher. And then we're talking about the different enemies of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, right? So and it's understood, Abu Jahl, why there wasn't animosity, right? Because he was jealous, and it was really a competition of two tribes. And then, Walid bin Mughira, right? It was really about, his again, right? It was not submitting, right, to another tribe, and so on and so forth. So I was asking the teacher about, what about Abu Lahab? And what's his deal? Right? What's his problem? Right? Like, wouldn't you be proud that your nephew is a prophet? Why was he so against the prophet to that extent? Especially after doing these things, it was in his ancestry, Abu Lahab, that they knew of the coming of the last prophet. Right? And they were told about the coming of the last prophet, and they were given the wasiyah, right, the advice from to to be of service to him. So what's the problem? And she was like, Nanny, in every zaman, people own children, even if it comes rotten in that way. It's true. Right? People who are rotten in that way, that they can't be happy for the children of their siblings. Right? So if your siblings have children who, mashallah, memorize Quran very well, and mashallah, are righteous and whatsoever, there are people they can't be happy for other people. Right? So probably Abu Lahab, his biggest issue, maybe because it didn't come to his sons. For all we know, they had an issue with that. Allah Alam. Right, but it was in their ancestry anyway. So he came back to Mecca, and the immediately, they recognized it immediately as the one who carried the light of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, of the final prophet. And the reason why they always recognize them quickly, it is because they would ask for rain from these people, by these people. Right? This is why the people of Mecca, they're very used to this light in the face, right? Because they know that whoever has this light in the face, if this person were to go to the Kaaba and raise his hands and ask for rain, rain will come. And it was such a established fact. Mashallah. So they quickly always recognize who are the ancestors of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, or who's carrying the light of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And they will say that they will bring, Qusay, and thereafter every one of the ancestors, in fact, they would always, whenever they wanted rain, right? Because they're in the desert, right? And then sometimes their crops and so on, they don't grow very well. So when they wanted rain, they will say the Sahib Nur, right? The one that has the light. They find whoever has the light and bring that person to the Kaaba and make that person make dua. Mashallah. And Abdul Muttalib used to do it, and Sayyidina Hashim used to do it. And then when Rasulullah was a baby, it was a young boy, his grandfather Abdul Muttalib would bring himself, to the Kaaba and ask for Rasulullah as a young boy to make dua for rain, and rain would come immediately. Mashallah, mashallah. Right, so in a sense, it's forms of Allah's mercy, right? That Allah has given all these indications that these are special people, they're carrying special lineage, right? So pay attention, subhanallah. Right. So so basically they use him to to make dua for rain, right? And then nah, and then they will use him, in other matters, like for him to be, of the council, to discuss matters, right? And then for to carry the banner, right? And then to be a leadership and so on and so forth, right? And that he is the one, right? That they and he's actually the one that is usually mentioned in the books of Sirah, right? Who began all of these things in the first place, right? All of the different different responsibilities around the Kaaba, that he began doing that, right? So, of his words, um, mm, of the words of Qusay. Let me see of some of his words that he used to say. Yeah, so there's some words of wisdom here. One of his words is that he said that if someone, is not um does not try to rectify himself, right, with being generous, right, then he will be rectified by being disgraced. One of his words, mashallah. You have to encourage generosity. If someone does not rectify himself or his character in being generous, then he will be rectified by being disgraced. Right? No. And then, mashallah, right? And he mentioned, and he mentioned also that whosoever, wants a position higher than what he actually holds. And so if you want a position that is higher than your position, right, it means from, in society or whatsoever, right, then he deserves to be denied it. Deserves to be denied by that position. Allahu Alam. Now, and then in one of his statements also is that he said, right, the jealousy, right, jealousy, or the one jealousy, it is a hidden enemy, of the person who has jealousy. Right, the one who has jealousy, he has a hidden enemy inside of himself. Mashallah. Right. So so it was said, right, that when his death came nearer, right, so again, as you see all the wasiyah coming out, right, all of the advice, right, when his death came nearer, right, he gathered his children, right, and he said to them, stay away from alcohol, right, stay away from alcohol, right, because even if it keeps your body warm, right, because the people of the past used to drink alcohol because it keeps their body warm. Allahu alam, I don't know. Never drunk alcohol before, right, but it is said that people used to drink alcohol because it kept their body warm, right? So he said, stay away from alcohol. You shouldn't stay away from alcohol. It's because even if it keeps your body warm, right, it destroys your intellect, right? So stay away from it. right? And then he gave them the wasiyah, right? He told them that there will come, right, from this lineage, from this line, the final prophets. Right? See, from one of you, I will come the final prophets. And of his children, right, who was around him, was Abdu Manaf, and that is where the lineage continues. You have Abdul Uzza, and you have Abdul Dar, right? So his lineage actually goes through Abdul Manaf, right? So Abdul Manaf. So we're going to go through a bit of the three of his sons, right? And the lineage that comes from them. Because some of the great companions came from these lineages, including Sayyidah Khadija radiallahu anha wa ardaha. So Abdul Manaf, that's where the lineage of continues. And we'll speak about him in the next session, or maybe later on in the session, right? And then we have Abdul Uzza. Abdul Uzza, he is he has a one who is Asad. His name is Asad, and then from Asad came 5 children, right? So of the 5 children of Asad is Khuwailid. So now Khuwailid is a familiar name, right? So now we can memorize the Khadija's lineage. So Khadija binti Khuwailid bin Asad bin Abdul Uzza bin Qusay, right? So she meets the lineage of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam at Qusay. So you would say that she would be the what cousin of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. If you want to count that way, right? She would be the right. So basically they share a great, let's see. So the father is Khuwailid, right? Grandfather is Asad, great grandfather is Abul Uzza, great great grandfather is Qusay. So they share a great great grandfather, right? They share a great great grandfather. So their great grandfather are siblings, right? And so for their grandfathers are cousins, right? And then so for correct. Right. So since so then their fathers, so Huwailid, right? You say Huwailid to so Abdul Manaf. So after Qusay, you have Abdul Manaf, right? And then you have Hashim, right? So Abdul Manaf is the sibling of Abdul Uzza, right? And Hashim is the cousin of Asad, right? So which means that Abdul Muttalib is the second cousin of Khuwailid, right? Which means that Abdullah is a third cousin, right, of Khuwailid. Okay, so which means that Rasulullah SAW and Sayyidah Khadija, they are 4th cousins. You're following me. Okay, so anyway, you're gonna go back in that way. If you want to just count back, because she does very often refer to Rasulullah SAW as cousin, right? So they're not so far actually. They're about four cousins. A 4th cousin, right? The 4th cousin will be the children of your cousin, and your children are second cousins. Then their children, with their children, will be third cousins. Then their children will be 4th cousins in that way. Allahu A'lam. Naam. Right. So for Sayyidah Khadija, right? So Khadija binti Khuwailid bin Asad bin Abdul Uzza bin Qusay. Okay, Rasulullah SAW is Muhammad bin Abdullah bin Abdul Muttalib bin Hashim bin Abdul Manaf bin Qusay. Okay, now we do hafal, okay, that memorize, because we always want Khadija's lineage to Rasulullah's lineage. So now, okay, memorize it already. Alhamdulillah, memorized it. So we need this. I mean, it is a form of love, right? To memorize lineages, right? So you should know, something of the people that you love, of their lineage. This is just from the side of from the bab karam, right? From the way of honoring. So say the Khadija, right, linked to Khuwailid, right, and her, she has 2 brothers. She has Hizam and she has Awam, right, her brothers. So there are 3 of them. So say the Khadija, right, you have Hizam bin Khuwailid, and you have Al-Awwam bin Khuwailid. So is the bin Hisham. Allah. And he is one of those who deeds and so on and so forth. He was very close to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So basically, he is the brother-in-law of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam because he's a brother of Sayyidah Khadija, right? So I hope that you're all in, you know, understanding all this and enjoying it. And there is a interesting, you know, thing in about lineage, right? So and then you have Awam, right? So Awam sounds familiar. I hope it sounds familiar, right? Because um Sayyidina Zubair, right? Sayyidina Zubair bin Awam. Right, Sayyidina Zubair bin Awam is the nephew of Sayyidah Khadija, of course from a brother Al-Awam. So he was one of the he was one of the people who used to come to the house of Rasulullah a lot when he was a young boy. Right, so he was very close to Sayyidina Ali. And Ali lived in the house of Rasulullah. He grew up in the house of Rasulullah because he was the Prophet Sallallahu, right? To in a sense to do to his uncle Abu Talib, you know, goodness as the uncle had done to him when he was him up as an orphan. And so when he was a grown man, he offered to his uncle Abu Talib to take in one of his children, and that was Sayyidina Ali. Right. Sayyidah Khadija had her nephew Zubair bin al-Awwam come to the house very often, right? And he would hang out in the house, right? So there were these other children. So they were basically the children around Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam hanging out in his house, right? And nam, right? So and he had a brother named Abdurrahman. His name was actually Abdul Kaaba, but Rasulullah changed his name to Rahman and so on. Right. So naam, alhamdulillah. Right. So and also the Zubair bin Awam. And if you go in the future, so in the past you will see that Zubair bin Awam is the nephew of Sayyidah Khadija. Sayyidina Ali is the cousin of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They are close in age, right? And they grew up together, right? And they loved each other as as friends and as brothers, right? But if you go into the future, right, you will find that because there was one point in the history whereby Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam turned to Sayyidina Ali and said, "Yeah, Ali, do you love Zubair?" And Sayyidina Ali said, "Yes, of course I love Zubair. He's like a brother to me." And then he turned to Zubair and he says, "Yeah, Zubair, do you love Ali?" And then Zubair says, "Yes, of course I love him. He's like a brother to me." And then Rasulullah sallallahu said to Sayyidina Zubair, "Oh Zubair, there will come a day where you will fight Ali and you are in the wrong." It's all prophethood of Rasul prophecies of Rasulullah. You will fight Ali and you are in the wrong. And he said it, and then Zubair heard it, right? So later on in the Battle of the Camel, that it happened later in the life of the Sahaba after the death of Rasulullah. Sayyidina Zubair was in an army, and Sayyidina Ali was in the other army, right? And they met at battlefield, and then Sayyidina Ali said, Sayyidina Zubair, "Oh Zubair, do you remember what the Prophet said to us?" In this particular day, and he asked you if you loved me, asked me if I loved you. Then he told you, "O Zubair, that you will fight me and you are in the wrong." Right? And then Zubair at a point that he forgot that even that the hadith even happened. He forgot all about it because it was years after. So he even forgot that was made. So when Sayyidina Ali said to him during the battle, Sayyidina Zubair, he dropped his sword and he turned around and he walked off. Like he walked off from the battlefield. He turned away from the battlefield. One of the hypocrites who were from the army of Sayyidina Ali, because Sayyidina Ali's army was also filled of hypocrites. Basically, it was a very volatile situation. So he ran after Sayyidina Zubair, right? And he cut off the head of Sayyidina Zubair. And then he brought back the head of Sayyidina Zubair and to Sayyidina Ali, right? And he said, good news, I killed Zubair. And then Sayyidina Ali turned to him and said, "And I give you the news of hellfire." Right? Because I heard the Prophet ﷺ say that whoever kills Zubair, he is in the hellfire. right? But the munafiq, the hypocrite couldn't care less. They just want their fitna and whatever. They're not even affected by this kind of words. There are some say whoever kills Zubair is in the fire. Subhanallah. But anyway, Zubair is from this line. I said the Zubair is from the brother of the Khadija al-Awwam. Naam. Right. And then the mother of Zubair, right? The mother of Zubair is Sophia, right? And Sophia is the auntie of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Sophia binti Abdul Muttalib, mashallah. Right. So, and she's the one auntie that came into Islam, right? Without any doubt. As you go through Sirah, you'll find out who did not come into Islam, came into Islam. Those who passed away before he was raised to be a prophet. So as you see all all the uncles and the aunties of Rasulullah, but one of his aunties that is well known, when she came into Islam is Sophia. Sophia binti Abdul Muttalib is the mother of her. So she married a brother of Sayyidah Khadija. It's all interconnected because it's a tribe. As mentioned there. So this is also important to lay out the stage as to how we can see the society in Mecca in the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. All of this has impact, on our zaman. They all have impact. It's why right now I'm studying the end of time. It is important for us to be completely well versed. With the science of with the Sirah, we must be extremely well versed with really what's going on with the Sirah, right? So you must know who's the son of who and who's and how are they connected and everything and so on and so forth, right? Because it actually matters when it comes into uh, um, when it comes into learning about when it comes into taking lessons from a life of Rasulullah and also principles to apply towards the end of time. Mashallah. It all comes in, mashallah. So anyway, yeah. Right. So anyway, the other sons of Al Asad, right? So Asad bin Abdi Manaf, right? So Abdul Manaf, right? He has 3 sons. So he has 1 son, Asad. Asad has 5 sons. Okay, the first son is Khuwailid. Khuwailid is the father of Sayyidah Khadija. His other son Amr, right? He is the one that Sayyidah Khadija married first before she married Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Right. So so means that she married her own cousin. Right? She married her own cousin, first cousin, right, in fact. First, right? So it was what happened as she married him first, right? And then there was another person, right? So I hope you're drawing out a tree, a family tree. So Abdul Manaf has 1 son, Asad. Asad has 5 children, right? First child is Khuwailid, father of Sayyidah Khadija. Right? Second child is Amr, right? Who is the first, you would say, the first husband of Sayyidah Khadija, right? He passed away before she married Rasulullah. The third son of Asad is Naufal. Okay, so Naufal sounds familiar. I hope it sounds familiar, right? Because Waraqah bin Naufal, right? That's why she also calls, she called Waraqah her cousin, right? So Waraqah bin Naufal. So Naufal is the son of Asad, who is the son of Abdul Manaf. Okay, I hope you're following. And so Abdul Manaf, no, the son of Abdul Uzza, Abdul Uzza. Abdul Uzza and Abdul Manaf are siblings. Abdul Manaf comes to the lineage of Rasulullah. Naam, right. So right, he's father of Adi bin Naufal, who was a companion, a Sahabi, and Sayyidina Umar and Sayyidina Osman. MashaAllah. So you know where Sayyidina Umar and Sayyidina Osman meet the Prophet was a niche. Right? Niche, mashallah. Right? So this now if you remember is how the other was, and yeah, and he's the and you also have Waraqa bin Nawfal, right? Waraqa bin Nawfal, who is the one that Rasulullah Khadija brought Rasul to, right, when he first got the message. And he is the one who said, هذا الناموس هذا الناموس الذي أنزل على موسى يا ليتني فيما جزع يا ليتني أكون وحيا إذ يخرجك قومك. Right, so Sayyidina Nawfal, and then Nawfal is Sayyidina, he is a believer, of course, because he's the one who told the Prophet that the Prophet is a Prophet, right? So, but Sayyidina Nawfal, there is a hadith narration whereby Rasulullah said that do not Nawfal, Warqa bin Nawfal, and do not curse Warqa bin Nawfal, for surely he will come on the day of judgment as an ummah by himself. Right? Don't curse Warqa bin Nawfal, and for surely he will come on the day of judgment as an ummah by himself. MashaAllah. An ummah, a full ummah by himself, MashaAllah. So, Warqa bin Nawfal. So, and he was the one who affirmed the prophethood of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. There was no need for him to affirm, and the Prophet knew he was a prophet, mashallah, right? But basically, there was this to affirm for the ummah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam that indeed he is a prophet, and that the one that came to him was an angel that came to the previous prophets. Okay, so that was Nawal bin Abdul Uzza bin Qusayn. That's how. So Nawfal's lineage to Rasulullah is similar to Sayyidina Khadija's lineage to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Anyway, he said that when Khadija brought Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam to Nawfal to Warqa bin Nawfal, right? And he said, if only, he said, he said there was Namus that came to Musa, the same angel, right? And he said, woe to me, right? In my old age, woe to me, if only I will be alive, right? When your people chase you out, so I could defend you. Then Rasul said, will they chase me out? And he said, yes, there has been a person who has come before you will come with, except that his people chased him out. And he says that if I live to see that, this is the importance of niyyah, of intention. And that's what in our zaman right now, you make intention that if you live to see the Dajjal, or if you live to see Nabi Isa, make intention right now that you will be of his assistance. You intend, right? Allah, I intend to be in his assistance, and I intend to be in the army, and to fight against the Dajjal, the evil forces. Right? And it's really we really need to speak more about this, because it's one of the hadiths of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam that towards the time of Dajjal, people stop speaking about him. Right? That's the sign whereby it gets close to the time of Dajjal. People stop speaking about him, and the imams and mimbars do not speak about him anymore. Right? There's a sign that he's coming. Right? When people begin to see Dajjal as a myth, right? It's a myth that's just spoken by some people. So we make our intention in the following the way of Waraq bin Nawfal. He actually put his intention down. He said, if I am alive in yudrikani yawmuka, if I meet the day, right, that that you are striving in the way of this religion, right, he said, ansuraka nasran mu'azzara. He says, I will support you with a support. I will give you victory. I will support you with a support. I will assist you to the extent of my ability. I will assist you. Right. So that was what he said. Right. And then Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that indeed Waraqa, or some of the scholars said Waraqa believed in the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he actually, you see, he Aslama. He did come into Islam, right? And he believed in the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, right? And so there is so we do not so people are not to say anything about bin Nawfal, right? That is negative, right? Because he was one of the believers, right? The cousin of Rasulullah cousin of Sayyidah Khadija radiallahu anhu, right? Anha, and it is why it is also that Sayyidah Khadija brought Rasul some to Warqa bin Nawfal. She said to Sayyidina Warqa, she said, hear what your cousin has to say. Hear what your cousin has to say, right? And then so because they're all cousins, they're all like fourth cousins on, mashallah. Right, so that was Warqa bin Nawfal, right? And then uh and then there is of the sons of Asad is Al-Muttalib. Okay, this Al-Muttalib, right, is not the it's not the uncle, it's not the grand uncle of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, someone else. Okay, so basically these are the common names, right? So you might find um that the names repeat. So Al-Muttalib is not a unique name, it's a common name. So he is the um he so basically from his lineage came some of the Sahaba, right? Some of the not so well known Sahaba, right, from his lineage. And of those who used to they are of those who used to support Rasulullah from the very beginning, right, of his message, mashallah. Right. And then the fifth of his son is Habib, Habib bin Asad, right? And to him, right, you have a few of the companions,